The first thing they did was apologize for the inconvenience. The second thing they did was take my blood. "It's only a formality," the technician said, adjusting the silver band around her wrist. The band projected a lattice of light that wrapped around my arm like a polite, glowing snake. "Standard genomic verification before entering the inner court." "Of course," I said. "I never feel properly welcomed unless someone catalogs my chromosomes." She didn't smile. Her species rarely did in public. They looked almost human, same posture, same symmetry. But the long, elegant ears rising through her dark hair gave her an otherworldly precision, as if evolution had edited them more carefully than the rest of us. Thin filaments of faint light traced along the edges of her ears, flickering whenever the scanner pulsed. I tried not to stare. She tried not to care. Across the chamber, a second officer monitored a vertical display filled with spiraling helix models. My DNA rotated in midair, color-coded and annotated. I had never seen myself rendered so artistically. I looked expensive. "Is this going to tell you I skipped breakfast?" I asked. "It will tell us everything," she replied calmly. "That feels excessive. I only came to fix a translation array." "You are entering the presence of her radiance." "That's what worries me." The scanner tightened briefly, then released. A thin bead of red floated up from my skin and dissolved into the light field. The projection shimmered, reorganized, and began cross-referencing imperial archives. A soft chime indicated completion. The technician glanced at the results. Then she stopped breathing. I don't mean metaphorically. Her chest simply froze mid-inhale. The light along her ears flared sharply, a quick pulse of blue-white. "Is that bad?" I asked. She didn't answer. The second officer stepped closer to the display. "Recalibrate," she said quietly. "It is calibrated." "Run it again." "It is already rerunning." The helix rotated faster. New symbols overlaid the model, ancient glyphs I had seen carved into palace corridors on my way in. Decorative, I'd assumed. Very dramatic. Now they were stamped across my genome like someone had annotated me centuries ago. "I assume that symbol doesn't mean frequent flyer," I offered. The second officer's ears flicked, an involuntary motion, sharp and tense. "Transmission protocol engaged." "Transmission to where?" I asked. Neither of them looked at me. The chamber lighting shifted subtly. The air hummed as if distant machinery had awakened. On the central display, a notification appeared, direct throne channel initiated. "That sounds important," I said. The technician swallowed. "Remain still." I wasn't planning a dance routine. A thin beam of coherent light descended from the ceiling and intersected the helix projection. My DNA refracted into a complex lattice, layers unfolding like hidden architecture. Data scrolled too quickly for me to read. The glyphs brightened. "Is this about unpaid taxes?" I asked. "Because in my defense, your empire's tax portal is deeply confusing." The second officer finally looked at me. There was no hostility in her gaze, only something like disbelief. "You are human," she said. "That has been my understanding since birth. This sequence," she gestured to the projection, "it is not possible." I leaned sideways to get a better look. That's my general philosophy about most things. The door behind me sealed with a heavy, decisive sound. I turned slowly. "I assume that's also a formality." "No one is detaining you," the technician said quickly. "That's comforting. The locked door adds a festive tone." The projection stabilized. A section of the helix separated, highlighted in gold. The glyph beside it pulsed brighter than the others. Even I could tell it was special. "Can you at least tell me what it says?" I asked. The technician hesitated. "It is an archaic marker." "For what?" She didn't answer. Instead, the entire display shifted orientation, angling upward as if presenting itself to someone taller than all of us. The beam intensified. Somewhere beyond the walls, deep within the palace, another screen would be lighting up. Another pair of eyes studying the same pattern etched inside my cells. I imagined a bored monarch glancing at routine data, preparing to wave it aside. Then I imagined her not waving. The humming in the chamber deepened. The officers straightened instinctively, shoulders aligning, expressions smoothing into disciplined neutrality. A new symbol appeared over the golden sequence. Even I recognized this one. It was carved above the palace gates, embossed on imperial vessels, woven into banners across the capital. The royal crest. I pointed at it. "I'm going to assume that's decorative." No one laughed. The technician's voice lowered. "The system has identified a prime concordance signature. That sounds like a medical condition. It is a lineage classification." I don't have a lineage, I said. I have a grandmother who makes excellent soup. Her ears flickered again, this time not with tension but something closer to awe. The door at the far end of the chamber opened, not the one behind me, but a second entrance I hadn't noticed before. Light spilled in, softer and more focused than the clinical glow around us. A voice spoke from beyond the threshold. Bring him. It was not loud, it did not need to be. The officers lowered their heads instantly. I blinked. That doesn't sound like a lab technician. The technician finally met my eyes fully. Whatever professionalism she had clung to was gone, replaced by something raw. Her radiance has reviewed your results. That was fast. She requests your presence. Requests, I repeated carefully. Not summons, not arrest. Requests, she confirmed. I looked at the golden strand still rotating in the air. Out of curiosity, what happens to people with prime concordance signatures? She hesitated just long enough to be honest. They do not usually exist. I exhaled slowly. That's inconvenient. The beam retracted. The projection dimmed, but the royal crest remained hovering faintly above my genetic map, like a crown I had not agreed to wear. I flexed my fingers, half expecting them to glow or rearrange themselves into something more impressive. They didn't. I came here to fix a translation array, I muttered. The second officer stepped aside, gesturing toward the open doorway. History rarely announces itself in advance. That's dramatic, I said. I prefer appointments. Neither of them smiled. As I walked toward the light, I glanced back at the fading helix. Somewhere in the palace, a queen with long, luminous ears had looked at the same pattern and seen something that made her break protocol. I just hoped it wasn't contagious. They did not take me to a prison. This surprised me. I had prepared at least 3 speeches for wrongful incarceration, each progressively more dramatic. Instead, I was escorted through corridors that seemed designed to remind visitors of their relative insignificance. The floors responded to the guards' steps with faint pulses of light. Mine did nothing. I assume the glowing is a rank thing, I said to the guard on my left. It is a recognition interface, she replied, so the floor respects you. Yes, I feel judged by architecture. She did not react, but the filament along her long ear flickered once. I was beginning to suspect that was their version of a sigh. We passed through a series of transparent barriers that scanned me without asking permission. My bones briefly appeared as luminous outlines over my skin. A secondary projection displayed my heart rate. Good news, I said, still human. The guard on my right glanced at the projection. Elevated. I'm walking toward a monarch who just discovered I'm genetically inconvenient. Elevated seems appropriate. They stopped before a final threshold. It did not look like a door. It looked like a vertical surface of suspended particles, each one vibrating in precise formation. The throne chamber, the left guard said. Do I bow, kneel, wave? You will respond when addressed. That narrows it down. The particles separated soundlessly. I stepped through. The chamber was quiet in a way that felt intentional, not empty intentional, as if silence itself had been engineered and installed. She stood at the far end, the queen. She looked like the others in form, human silhouette, long ears rising elegantly from dark hair. But there was something different about the way she held stillness. The filaments along her ears shimmered faintly, reacting to something I couldn't hear. A lattice of suspended data rotated slowly behind her, strands of light intersecting in complex patterns. For a moment, she did not speak. She studied me. I resisted the urge to check behind me to confirm there wasn't someone more impressive standing there. So I said carefully, I assume this is about the blood. A faint shift in her expression, not quite amusement, not quite disbelief. Approach, she said. I did. Each step felt recorded, catalogued. Possibly archived for future educational purposes under unexpected developments. When I was close enough to see my reflection in the crystalline surface near her throne, she lifted her hand. The lattice behind her responded, isolating a single golden strand. My golden strand. You are aware of what was found in your genome? She asked. I have gathered that it is not a coupon. It is a prime concordance signature. I've heard that term. It sounds prestigious and medically alarming. It is neither. That is somehow worse. Her ears brightened subtly, a slow pulse of light traveling from base to tip. This signature has not appeared in 9 centuries. I apologize for the delay. She ignored that. It predates the consolidation of the empire. It predates my line. Your line being, my ancestry. Right, of course. The lattice shifted again. Another helix appeared beside mine, similar in structure but not identical. Points of alignment flashed where the two sequences mirrored one another. I stared at it. That one's yours, I guessed. Yes. The aligned points intensified. Is that good? I asked. It is unprecedented. I'm getting that a lot today. She stepped down from the raised platform. The chamber did not react with alarm. It reacted with recalibration. Data streams adjusted. Lighting shifted fractionally, as if the environment itself recognized her movement as a variable. When she stood directly before me, I became acutely aware of the faint electromagnetic hum in the air. The filaments along her ears glowed brighter. "They are responding," she said quietly. "To what?" "To you." I looked over my shoulder. "I don't think I'm emitting anything special." "You are, other than anxiety." She extended her hand. Not to seize to request, "May I?" I considered the options. Refusing a galactic monarch seemed impolite. "Sure," I said, "as long as this doesn't activate a hidden laser grid." Her fingers brushed my wrist. The reaction was immediate. The lattice behind her flared. My golden strand expanded, unfolding into layered geometries. Her helix responded in kind, sections illuminating in synchrony. A harmonic tone resonated through the chamber, low and steady. I blinked. That seems excessive for a handshake. She did not release me. Her eyes were no longer studying me as a curiosity. They were searching. "You carry an intact first concordance mark," she said. "That sounds like something I should have learned about in school. It was erased from your species' records." "That feels rude." "It was erased from ours as well." The harmonic tone deepened. Symbols I did not recognize spiraled outward from the intersection points of our projected genomes. Behind us, I sensed movement. Advisors had entered quietly. I caught fragments of whispering. Verification protocols. Impossible stability. Cross-species continuity. I leaned slightly closer to her. Should I be concerned about the whispering? "They are recalculating the future," she said. "That seems ambitious before lunch." Her gaze sharpened. "You are not a threat." "That's reassuring." "You are not a weapon." "I'm very glad to hear that." "You are a convergence." I paused. "That sounds expensive." For the first time, unmistakably, the corner of her mouth shifted. "If this signature is activated," she continued, "it will stabilize my line. And if it's not," a fraction of a second passed, "my line will fail." The chamber seemed to absorb that statement. I cleared my throat. "When you say fail, do you mean metaphorically, or is this more of a dramatic biological shutdown situation?" "Biological? Of course it is." She released my wrist. The lattice dimmed slightly but did not vanish. The golden strand remained brighter than before. "You have been living an ordinary life," she said, "painfully ordinary. And yet within your cells is a structure designed to interface with mine. That's intimate. It is evolutionary. Still intimate." The advisors stepped forward cautiously. One of them, older, her long ears adorned with thin metallic bands, spoke. "Your Radiance, the Council will demand containment." "I am aware," the Queen replied. "Containment." I raised a hand. "Quick question, what does containment involve?" The older advisor looked at me as if evaluating furniture. "Isolation, observation, restriction. Those are three words I dislike in sequence." The Queen's gaze did not leave mine. "You will not be contained." "That is excellent news." "You will be invited." I hesitated. "That sounds similar but more decorative." "You will remain within the palace as my guest." "Guest," I repeated, "with the ability to leave." A pause. "We will discuss parameters." I exhaled slowly. "I came here to repair a translation array." "You will still repair it," she said. "That feels optimistic." Her ears dimmed slightly, then steadied. "You asked earlier what your genome revealed," she said. "Yes, I'm still curious." "It revealed that the Empire is not as singular as we believed." "That's a philosophical answer." "It is the only honest one." The lattice behind her shifted one final time. Our two helices remained side by side, linked by luminous points that refused to fade. Somewhere beyond these walls, the Council was likely preparing arguments. Inside this chamber, the future had just acquired my name without asking permission. I rubbed my wrist. "So," I said carefully, "what happens now?" The Queen regarded me with something that was no longer shock. "Now," she said, "we discover why you exist. They gave me rooms, plural." I tried not to take that personally. You understand this is not confinement, the advisor with the metallic earbands said as she walked beside me. It is precaution. Of course, I replied. When someone says precaution, I immediately feel relaxed. You are free to move within the designated sectors. Designated by whom? By the throne. That feels like a small detail. The doors to my assigned quarters opened with a soft, harmonic tone. The system scanned my face, then my pulse, then something deeper that made the air briefly thrum. Is that checking my soul? I asked. It is verifying your genomic resonance. I preferred the soul explanation. Inside, the walls adjusted opacity automatically. A field of faintly shifting constellations appeared across one surface. A central table projected a slow rotation of my golden genetic strand, as if it had been promoted to interior decor. I pointed at it. Is that necessary? It is monitoring stability. I feel very stable. Slightly confused, but stable. The advisor studied the projection. The concord because it is interacting with the palace substrate. That sentence contains too many concerning words. The helix expanded again, projecting branching lines that extended outward and then curved back toward a second pattern forming in midair. Not mine, hers. The queen's sequence appeared beside mine, not because she was physically present, but because the palace was networked to her biological signature. The two strands aligned automatically. Archive, I said slowly, is this normal? No. Great. The alignment points lit up in synchronized pulses. A new structure formed between them, a bridge of light composed of micro-encoded quantum filaments. I squinted at it. That looks expensive. It is a dormant interspecies stabilization lattice. Of course it is. The door chimed. The queen entered without entourage. The grid in the room recalibrated instantly, intensifying as she stepped closer. Her long ears glowed faintly, brighter than before, responding to the resonance in the air. You activated the interface, she said. It activated me, I replied. I was just standing here being unremarkable. She approached the projection. The bridge between our sequences brightened. It is self-assembling, she said quietly. That sounds like the beginning of either a breakthrough or a disaster. Both are possible. I folded my arms. I would prefer breakthrough. She glanced at me. So would I. The bridge extended further, forming a complex geometry that neither of us seemed fully prepared to interpret. Archive, she said. Run origin trace. Processing. Symbols flooded the air, ancient ones, not imperial crests. Older. This predates the empire, she murmured. That's becoming a theme. The projection shifted, revealing a third sequence, fragmented, incomplete. It hovered faintly beneath ours. That one's broken, I said. It is extinct, she corrected, comforting distinction. It matches early human genomic divergence points. I blinked. Wait. The broken strand flickered, then synchronized partially with mine. Archive spoke again. Conclusion, the concordance mark was designed as a bidirectional evolutionary anchor. Translate that into something less alarming, I said. The queen answered instead. Our species began to destabilize centuries ago. You mentioned that. We compensated with artificial gene weaving. It prolonged stability but increased volatility. That sounds medically irresponsible. It was necessary. The bridge between our sequences pulsed again, stronger this time. You're saying, I said slowly, that my existence is some kind of biological patch update. Her eyes met mine. Yes, I stared at the projection. I don't even update my personal devices on time. A faint flicker of amusement passed across her expression. The concordance was meant to ensure that neither species evolved beyond compatibility, she continued. It was a safeguard. Against what? Isolation. The word hung between us. Archive projected a series of probability graphs. Without activation of the bridge, imperial genetic stability dropped sharply over 3 generations. With activation, I asked. Stability restored, Archive replied. Volatility reduced by 82%. That seems like a good number. It requires integration, the queen said. There it is, I muttered. She stepped closer to the projection and the bridge brightened again, reacting to her proximity. Integration does not mean erasure, she said. That's exactly what someone says before erasure. Her ears flickered, reacting to my rising pulse. It means alignment, she corrected. Define alignment. Your genome would interface with mine through controlled resonance fields. The bridge would be stabilized permanently. And I would remain me? Yes, mostly. She did not answer immediately. Archive, I said. What percentage of me would remain? Undefined. I looked at the Queen. That is not comforting. The projection shifted again. The broken third strand flickered, then dimmed further. Time is not unlimited, she said quietly. Is it ever? Silence, then I exhaled. I came here to repair a translation array, I said again. You still will. That feels symbolic at this point. She regarded the luminous bridge, then me. You asked what happens now, she said. Yes. Now we test whether the concordance responds voluntarily. That sounds like I have a choice. You do. The bridge pulsed once more, waiting. I looked at my own genetic strand hovering in the air, glowing as if it had been waiting centuries for this exact room. I rubbed my temples. So, I said, no pressure, right? Her ears shimmered faintly. Only the future of an empire. I nodded slowly. Of course. The council did not appreciate surprises. I learned this within the first 3 minutes of being invited to observe my own political evaluation. You understand, said the advisor with the metallic earbands, that this is not a trial. That's reassuring, I replied, because I did not study for one. It is a deliberation. That sounds like a trial with better vocabulary. The chamber filled gradually, not with noise but with presence. Members of the council took their positions in a semicircle, long ears, adorned in different patterns of filaments and alloys that probably indicated rank, achievement, or how argumentative they planned to be. At the center of the chamber, a projection of my genome rotated patiently, as if unaware it was controversial. The Queen stood beside it. I stood slightly behind her. I wasn't sure if that was symbolic or strategic. The prime concordance signature has been verified, announced one counselor. Her voice was steady, clinical. Multiple scans, independent archives, no corruption detected. That is correct, the Queen said. A second counselor leaned forward. Then the question is not authenticity, it is implication. I raised a hand slightly. I would also like to know the implication. No one acknowledged me. Integration, said another counselor, would permanently alter the succession lattice. Stabilize, the Queen corrected. Alter, the counselor repeated. The projection shifted. Probability models expanded around my helix, branching into dozens of potential futures. Some lines glowed steady, others fractured abruptly. I leaned toward the Queen. Are the fracturing ones bad? Yes, thought so. One of the older council members spoke, her long ears lined with faint blue circuitry. The concordance was designed as a contingency during the pre-unification era. It assumed cooperation between species. And, I asked, and cooperation failed. Historically, yes, I said, we're not great at it. A faint ripple moved through the chamber, not laughter, but something close. The Queen lifted her hand. The projection zoomed inward, isolating the luminous bridge between our sequences. The concordance has reactivated without coercion, she said. It responds to proximity, to voluntary resonance. Voluntary is debatable, muttered a counselor. He did not request this. I definitely did not, I confirmed. Yet it awakened, the Queen continued. That suggests design beyond politics. The advisor with the metallic earbands turned to me. Human, do you understand what integration would entail? Not fully, I said. I've heard the words alignment, stabilization, and undefined. None of those are comforting. A few ears flickered. She nodded. The process would bind your genome into the royal lattice. Your biological pattern would become part of the stabilizing architecture of the empire. So I become infrastructure. In simplified terms. I was hoping for something more glamorous. A counselor interjected. You would gain access to extended lifespan modulation, enhanced cognitive interfacing, and direct neural communication with the palace systems. I blinked. That last one sounds intrusive. It is efficient. I value an efficiency. It keeps things private. The Queen glanced at me briefly, then addressed the council again. Without integration, projections indicate systemic degradation within 3 generations. The fracturing probability lines brightened ominously. With integration, she continued, volatility decreases by 82%. I raised a finger. I like that number, it's very specific. It is not enough, said a sharp-voiced counselor. We do not alter the foundation of the empire because of favorable percentages. You altered it 9 centuries ago, the Queen replied evenly. You erased the concordance from record. A murmur passed through the chamber. That was necessary, someone said. So is this. Silence, I shifted my weight. May I ask a question? No one answered. I asked anyway. If this concordance thing was meant to ensure cooperation, why erase it? The older counselor with the blue circuitry looked at me. Because cooperation required vulnerability. And that was unacceptable. It was dangerous. I nodded slowly. Right, because trusting someone different has historically gone very well for most civilizations. A few counselors' ears flickered brighter, reacting to rising emotional frequencies. The Queen stepped forward. The projection followed her movement instinctively. The concordance was not weakness, she said. It was balance. Balance with a species that ages rapidly, fractures politically, and destabilizes ecosystems, countered another counselor. Hey, I said, we're working on it. More flickers, a faint ripple that might actually have been suppressed amusement. The advisor turned back to me. Human, if you refuse integration, you will be permitted to leave. That's generous. But the concordance will remain active at low amplitude. Your proximity to her radiance will continue to trigger resonance events. So I'm biologically inconvenient either way. Yes. Excellent. The projection shifted again. This time it displayed a simulation of full activation. The luminous bridge between our genomes solidified into a stable structure, anchoring both sequences. The fracturing probability lines dimmed. I stared at it. And what happens to me? I asked. You remain yourself, the Queen said. That was not a detailed answer. You gain expanded longevity. How expanded? Substantially. I exhaled. I just figured out how to file taxes correctly. I'm not sure I'm ready for centuries. A counselor leaned forward. The Empire cannot hinge its future on the hesitation of one human. That feels like pressure, I said. It is reality. The Queen's voice cut through the chamber. The Empire will not coerce him. A tense silence followed. You would risk decline? Asked the sharp-voiced counselor. I would risk autonomy, she replied. Her long ears glowed brighter now, not with uncertainty but resolve. The projection responded to her emotional shift. The bridge between our genomes pulsed in synchrony with her bioluminal filaments. I swallowed. Hypothetically, I said, if we proceed with whatever this is, do I get a say in policy? Several council members stared at me. The Queen's expression shifted slightly. Yes, she said, that got their attention. He would not rule, a counselor snapped. I did not say rule, the Queen replied. I said influence. I looked between them. I feel like I should clarify that I am not good at governance. I once lost control of a group project. Your honesty is statistically refreshing, said the advisor. Thank you, I practice. The chamber quieted again. The Queen turned to me fully now. This is not only about stability, she said. It is about whether our species remains isolated. And integration means partnership, I said. Yes, with me. With you, I rubbed my hands together slowly. No offense, I said, but this is the most dramatic collaboration request I've ever received. Her ears flickered once softly. I am aware. The projection hovered between us, patient and luminous. The council waited. The Empire waited. I glanced at the glowing bridge connecting my DNA to hers. So, I said carefully, what exactly does voluntary resonance feel like? It feels like this, the Queen said. She stepped closer. The council did not interrupt this time. The projection between us brightened, the luminous bridge responding not to command but to proximity. I felt it then, not pain, not heat, but a low harmonic vibration beneath my skin, as if something inside my cells had been waiting for a signal and had finally heard it. That's new, I muttered. Is it unbearable? She asked. No. Just aware. The bridge thickened, stabilizing into a steady geometric structure. Archive's voice resonated softly through the chamber. Resonance amplitude increasing, voluntary threshold detected. That sounds promising, I said. I think the older counselor stepped forward. If you proceed, there will be no reversal. I figured, I replied. Nothing about this week has suggested reversibility. The Queen's gaze did not leave mine. You may refuse. And walk away while your species slowly destabilizes. You are not responsible for our survival. I gave a small breath of laughter. You scanned my DNA. Apparently I am. A faint ripple moved through the council. Not disagreement, recognition. I looked at the projection again. The fracturing probability lines were still there, dimmer now but present. Archive, I said. If I decline, what happens to the concordance? It remains active at low amplitude. Repeated resonance events may cause unpredictable biofeedback. That sounds like spontaneous glowing. Possible. I sighed. I do not want spontaneous glowing. The Queen's ears flickered once. You fear losing yourself, she said quietly. Yes, that fear is rational. Well, that's comforting. She stepped even closer, close enough that the luminous filaments along her long ears shimmered in synchronized pulses with the bridge. I will not erase you, she said. The concordance was designed for coexistence, not absorption. Coexistence, I repeated. Yes, you're sure, as certain as biology allows. I looked at the council. You're all very quiet, I said. We are observing, the metallic-banded advisor replied. Judging, calculating, please calculate optimistically. A faint flicker, several ears brightening briefly. I took that as progress. I exhaled slowly. I came here to repair a translation array, I said. And you will, the Queen replied. That feels symbolic now. It is. I stared at the luminous bridge one last time. All right, I said. Let's translate something bigger. The harmonic tone deepened instantly. Archive's voice rose in clarity. Voluntary integration initiated. The bridge solidified. Light moved through the structure, not violently but steadily, flowing from her helix into mine and back again. I felt a rush of impressions, not memories that were not mine, but context. Patterns, structures, an awareness of scale. It was like suddenly understanding the architecture of a city I had lived in all my life without seeing from above. My pulse accelerated. Still here, I said quickly. Definitely still me. The Queen's expression shifted, relief threading through her composure. I can feel the stabilization, she said. That sounds dramatic. It is measurable. The probability projections shifted. Fracturing lines faded. Stable branches brightened. Volatility reduced to projected safe parameters, Archive announced. The council remained silent for several heartbeats. Then the older counselor inclined her head. Stability confirmed, she said. Another followed. Succession lattice recalibrated. The metallic-banded advisor looked at me differently now, not as an anomaly. As a node, she said softly. I prefer person, I replied. A faint ripple of restrained amusement moved through the chamber. The light around us gradually softened. The bridge did not vanish. It remained integrated into both sequences, no longer a temporary construct but part of the architecture. I took a careful breath. I don't feel different, I said. You are, the Queen replied. In what way? You are no longer separate from the Empire's future. That's a heavy sentence. You chose it. I nodded slowly. Yes, I said. I did. The council shifted formation, no longer in opposition but in alignment. Then it must be formalized, said the sharp-voiced counselor, though her tone had softened. The concordance must be acknowledged publicly. I blinked. Publicly. You are now part of the royal stabilization lattice, she said. The people will sense the shift. Of course they will. The Queen regarded me. You will stand beside me, she said. Symbolically, practically. I considered that. Do I get a title? I asked. The metallic-banded advisor responded before the Queen could. Concordant. I tilted my head. That sounds important. It is. The Queen extended her hand again. This time when I took it, the harmonic tone that resonated through the chamber was steady and calm. No alarms, no urgency, only balance. Later, when the council dispersed and the projections dimmed, we walked together toward the corridor